Nathaniel Bishop stood at the window of his sprawling estate, watching autumn leaves dance across his manicured lawn. At 34, he had everything money could buy, and nothing it couldn't. His tech empire had made him a fortune, but each passing year only deepened his suspicion of others. "Mr. Bishop, the new cleaning staff is starting today," his house manager, Thomas, announced from the doorway. Nathaniel nodded without turning. "Make sure they understand the rules. Entering my private quarters. No touching personal items." "Course, sir." He had learned his lesson after the tabloid scandal with his ex-fiancée, Victoria, who had sold stories about their relationship to the highest bidder. Then came the friends who only appeared when they needed investors, the distant relatives emerging from nowhere with sob stories, and the endless parade of women more interested in his bank account than his company. Later that afternoon, Nathaniel was returning from his home gym when he noticed her, a young woman, carefully dusting the bookshelves in his study. Unlike the usual cleaning staff in their pressed uniforms, she wore simple clothes beneath her apron. What caught his attention wasn't her appearance, but her expression, complete absorption in treating each book with reverence. "You're new," he said, startling her. She nearly dropped the leather-bound volume in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Bishop. I didn't hear you come in." Her voice carried a slight accent. "I'm Amelia Reyes. My father is Jose, the head of groundskeeping. I'm just helping temporarily." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. Thomas didn't mention family members substituting for staff. "It's just for a few weeks," she explained carefully. Returning the book to its exact position. "My mother needs medical treatments, and the extra income helps. I promise I'm qualified. I've been cleaning houses since I was 16. Something in her direct gaze made him pause. Most people either cowered or fawned in his presence. She did neither. "That book you were holding? Have you read Dostoevsky?" Surprise flickered across her face. "Not that one, but Crime and Punishment in college. It was challenging, but beautiful." Nathaniel found himself momentarily disarmed. "What are you studying?" "Nursing," she replied, a hint of pride warming her voice. "Part-time while I work. 3 more semesters to go." He nodded, suddenly uncomfortable with his interest. "Carry on, then. Just remember the rules." "Yes, sir. No personal spaces. No touching. Anything that isn't being cleaned." As he walked away, Nathaniel couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled over him. For the first time in years, someone in his home had looked at him not as a wallet or a stepping stone, but simply as a person. Nathaniel couldn't explain his growing fascination with Amelia Reyes. Over the next 2 weeks, he found himself lingering in rooms where she worked, initiating brief conversations that revealed fragments of her life, her childhood in a small apartment with parents who had immigrated before she was born, her volunteer work at a community clinic, her dream of becoming a pediatric nurse. "You're watching The Janitor's Daughter again," Thomas observed one afternoon, his tone carefully neutral. "I'm observing all the staff," Nathaniel replied coolly. "It's my house." But even he couldn't deny the pattern. There was something refreshingly genuine about Amelia that stood in stark contrast to everyone else in his world. Still, experience had taught him painful lessons about trust. One Thursday evening, Nathaniel deliberately set a trap. He left his expensive watch on the side table near where Amelia would be cleaning, then stationed himself on the terrace lounge chair, pretending to fall asleep with his tablet, displaying his banking information nearby, through nearly closed eyelids. He watched her enter the room. She moved quietly, careful not to disturb him. When she noticed the watch, she paused. Nathaniel's heart beat faster as she picked it up, but she only placed it in a small decorative box on the table, closing the lid to protect it. Then she approached where he slept. Nathaniel remained perfectly still, expecting her to glance at his financial information. Instead, she gently closed the tablet cover and, to his astonishment, took the light throw from the nearby sofa and carefully draped it over him. "Rest well, Mr. Bishop," she whispered so softly he barely heard it. Then, even more surprisingly, she added, "May you find whatever peace you're looking for." She continued her work in near silence, meticulously cleaning without disturbing a single personal item. When she finished, she dimmed the lights slightly and left the room. Nathaniel opened his eyes, the blanket still covering him, and felt something unfamiliar: shame. He had tested her like an object of suspicion, and she had responded with kindness. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. In his world of calculated motives, Amelia Reyes appeared to have none beyond simple human decency. That night, sleep eluded him. The memory of her small act of kindness looped in his mind, forcing him to confront an uncomfortable truth. He had become so accustomed to expecting the worst from people that genuine goodness now seemed suspect. What did that say about the man he had become? "Your father tells me you're quite the student," Nathaniel said, finding Amelia arranging fresh flowers in the main hall the following week. He had deliberately sought her out, abandoning pretense. She smiled, surprised at his approach. "Dad brags too much. But I do love learning. Thomas mentioned your mother's treatments. She improving?" Amelia's hand stilled briefly. "Some days are better than others. The doctors are optimistic, but the medical bills..." She trailed off, then straightened her shoulders. "We'll manage, we always do." Nathaniel found himself saying, "I could recommend specialists. That's very kind." She interrupted gently, "But we're not looking for charity, Mr. Bishop." Her pride, so different from the entitlement he typically encountered, intrigued him further. "It's not charity. Connections. There's a difference." For the first time, he saw her hesitate. "I appreciate that. Perhaps I could discuss it with my parents." Over. The next several weeks, Nathaniel found increasingly transparent reasons to engage with Amelia. He learned about her favorite books, her volunteer work teaching English to immigrant families, her childhood dream of building a community health center in her neighborhood. One rainy afternoon, he found her in the library during her break, absorbed. "In a medical textbook, studying on your lunch hour?" he asked. She jumped slightly. "I hope that's okay. Your medical collection is amazing. Keep anything you'd like to borrow," he offered. "I couldn't, please. Books should be read, not just displayed." Their conversation drifted from medicine to literature to their vastly different childhoods. For the first time in years, Nathaniel spoke about his parents' death when he was in college. The loneliness of building his company, the gradual hardening of his heart after repeated betrayals. "Is that why you tested me that night?" she asked suddenly. His shock must have shown on his face. "Your breathing changes when you're actually asleep," she explained. "I have 3 younger siblings, I know." The difference, Nathaniel felt heat rise to his face. "I'm not proud of that." "We all protect ourselves in different ways," she said, without judgment. "The question is whether the walls we build keep more pain out than joy in." Her words struck him with unexpected force. As she returned to her duties, Nathaniel realized that the fortress he had constructed around his heart had begun to develop cracks, and Amelia Reyes was finding her way through them. "You've been different lately," remarked Richard Carlton, Nathaniel's oldest friend and business partner, as they shared drinks at the downtown Skyrise office. "Almost... human." Nathaniel's lip quirked. "Very funny. I'm serious." She turned down. "The merger with Westfield, which I agreed with, by the way, but without your usual scorched earth approach. And Cynthia mentioned you actually smiled at the charity gala last weekend." Nathaniel swirled his scotch, unwilling to acknowledge the changes himself. How could he explain that a janitor's daughter had softened something inside him that years of therapy couldn't touch? Over the past month, his interactions with Amelia had evolved from brief conversations to shared lunches in the garden, discussing everything from healthcare policy to favorite films. He'd even met her father properly, not as an employee, but as Amelia's dad, a dignified man with calloused hands and the same direct gaze as his daughter. "Should invite her to the foundation dinner," Richard suggested, reading Nathaniel's thoughts with unsettling accuracy. "Not like that, Nathaniel," protested. Richard's knowing smile said otherwise, but it wasn't that simple. When Nathaniel finally gathered the courage to invite Amelia to accompany him to a medical charity event, perfectly appropriate given her studies, the walls between their worlds became starkly apparent. "People would talk," she said quietly. "Your friends, the society pages. I'm the help, Nathaniel." It was the first time she'd used his first name, and it affected him more than he cared to admit. "I don't care what anyone thinks," he insisted. "But I do," she countered. "I work here. My father works here. Our livelihoods depend on clear boundaries." Before he could respond, her phone rang. The color drained from her face as she answered. "When? I'll be right there," she said urgently before hanging up. "My mother's been rushed to the hospital. Her condition has worsened." Without thinking, Nathaniel grabbed his keys. "I'll drive you." The next 12 hours in the hospital waiting room taught Nathaniel more about love than the previous decade. He watched Amelia's family rally around each other, her father's quiet strength, her siblings' unwavering support, and Amelia herself, translating medical terms and advocating for her mother with fierce determination. When the doctor finally announced that her mother had stabilized but would need expensive specialized treatment, Nathaniel witnessed the private conversation between Amelia and her father, the calculations, the worry, the stubborn dignity as they refused to ask him for help even though he sat just feet away, ready to solve this problem as he solved all others. With money, he realized then that some gifts couldn't be given without taking something equally valuable in return. Pride, independence, equality. For the first time in his life, Nathaniel Bishop didn't know how to fix a situation. The helplessness cracked him open even further. 2 days after her mother's hospitalization, Amelia didn't come to work. Nathaniel paced his study simultaneously, worried about her and frustrated by his own tangled emotions. When Thomas informed him that she had submitted her resignation to focus on her family's needs, Nathaniel felt a loss disproportionate to their brief acquaintance. He drove to the modest apartment building in the city's east side before he could talk himself out of it. Her surprise at seeing him at her door was evident. "Nathaniel, what are you doing here?" The small living room behind her was crowded with medical equipment newly delivered for her mother's home care. "You didn't say goodbye," he said simply. Her eyes softened. "I didn't know how." They sat at the tiny kitchen table, mugs of tea between them. Nathaniel explained the arrangement he'd made. An anonymous donation to the hospital's patient assistance fund that would cover her mother's treatments. He'd been careful to structure it so she couldn't refuse without denying help to others. As well, why? She asked, eyes glistening. "After everything you've been through, all the people who've used you, why help us?" Nathaniel considered his words carefully. "Because you draped a blanket over a man you thought was sleeping, instead of looking at his bank statements. Because you treat worn paperbacks and people with the same gentle respect. Because you made me want to be worthy of your good opinion." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "I've spent years with my eyes closed, Amelia, seeing only what I expected to see. You taught me to look again." "I'm still the janitor's daughter," she whispered. "And you're still a man who has everything except what matters most." He's finished. "I don't want to be your employer or your benefactor. I just want the chance to know Euphoria without the mansion and the job between us." Amelia studied him for a long moment. "No more tests, no more tests," he promised. "Oh, I should warn you, I've enrolled in a community service program at the clinic where you volunteer. My presence might be unavoidable." Her laugh transformed her face. Nathaniel Bishop mopping floors and sorting medical supplies. "This I have to see." "I'm quite trainable," he assured her with newfound lightness. "And I have excellent references as a study partner, should you need one for those nursing exams." As he drove home that evening, Nathaniel reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. He'd closed his eyes, pretending to sleep, expecting to confirm his worst suspicions about human nature. Instead, he had opened them to see clearly for the first time. The janitor's daughter hadn't just shown him her true intentions, she had revealed his own heart, proving that some treasures couldn't be calculated in dollars and cents, only in moments of genuine connection. And that, Nathaniel Bishop was discovering, made him truly rich. Years later, people asked how the notorious untouchable billionaire had fallen for the janitor's daughter. Nathaniel would simply smile and say, "Sometimes you have to close your eyes to finally see." What the world never understood was that his greatest fortune wasn't the empire he'd built, but the day Amelia chose to cover a cynical man with both a blanket and the grace he'd never thought to seek.